What is going on, everybody? Well, what can I say? First time for everything, and yeah. If you guys are watching this video, this is my draft recap for my first ever draft league in the newest Pokemon Scarlet and Violet TLC, the Teal Mask. And for those of you unaware, this is actually the first time I am showing my face on my YouTube channel. So, for those of you unaware, I am Tone, the coach of your Miami Palafins. And this is my draft recap for PPL, Bolt, and Flare Division. Basically, this is a continuation of the Pokemon Premier League's return to draft league form status after the success of their not their rebuild, their reemergence into the league. Fun fact: I was a part of the original Pokemon Premier League back before it disbanded back in Generation 7, but let's not reminisce on old times. So, to make things simple, I was going to put together a draft slides for all of my draft picks, explaining why I drafted what I did, but I've been doing this for so long now. This has been over 8 years now of doing draft league format, from Generation 6 here to Generation 9, and for the most part, I kind of don't want to do that at this point. There's just no sense in me regurgitating stuff that you guys already know. You guys just want the content, you guys just want the battles. I can explain my thought process, but that just becomes a bit too repetitive at certain points in time. So, to keep things simple, shout outs to CB Marcus for putting together the draft slides for all of the coaches taking part in the PPO Bolt and Flare division. So basically, how it works is there are 28 coaches, each in two separate divisions of 14 coaches. We have 115 points to draft a team between 10 and 12 Pokemon, and then afterwards you have to take at least two Pokemon as your Terra captains, but there are restrictions and they have their own Terra points and everything. So, and the limit is 15 Terra points per team. So you can have two up to three, and I thought there was a way I can get away with only having one, but alas, I could not do that. But regardless, though, I'm just going to quickly just run over the team that you see in front of your screen. This is the team I'm going to be rocking with for the PPL Flare division. I'm in the Flare division, and I had the second overall pick out of 14 coaches. And with the second pick in the draft, my round one pick is Manaphy. Manaphy is the first Pokemon I ever drafted in my draft league career way back in 2015, and seeing this thing come back just gives me some really fun memories of just spamming Tail Glow and just going to town with that thing. Obviously, with age comes wisdom, and I know better not to just spam Tail Glow 3 attacks in every single matchup. I still love the thing. Really happy it's back from its absence from Generation 8, and with it, the return of Tail Glow, new move in Take Heart, which is essentially Calm Mind plus Refresh in one move, which is incredible, making it a fantastic stall breaker. But for the most part, though, really, Manaphy is great and everything. It's not really what I would consider round one material, but for the most part, I had a number two pick, and nothing else that was available to get number two was relatively appealing at that point, because stuff like Dragapult, Iron Valiant, stuff like that was banned from being drafted. So you really had your pickings in terms of which Pokemon do you want to get. I could have gotten something high option like maybe Garchomp, but I used Garchomp in the PBA, and I really wanted to avoid taking Pokemon that I already drafted in a previous league unless I had no other choice. So that explains the thought process here with how I try to build my team and just try out different stuff. So aside from that, we have our Manaphy, and I knew to make Manaphy work in draft league, or my thought process going in building with Manaphy in mind was to incorporate Hazard Stack into helping Manaphy take out Pokemon, take out those threats that makes things difficult for Manaphy in the first place. Because Manaphy, while it's a great breaker, it needs to use a turn to set up a Tail Glow. And on top of that, it has middling speed at base 100. So I decided instead to utilize something like Sticky Web in an era of heavy duty boots and everything. Webs weren't just the thing for me, so I decided simple Hazard Stack should be enough to where I can use Manaphy as a breaker and not necessarily as a win con. The win con will come with time, but I decided make Manaphy the breaker and you let other Pokemon on my team benefit from the breaking capabilities that Manaphy can generate for them, for those teammates. So with that in mind, that's why I have round 2 Annihilate to help with the hazard stacking options, if only due to the fact that with hazard stack you want a spin blocker and you want some sort of deterrent of defog. Annihilate is both of those Pokemon, both of those roles in one Pokemon. On top of that, Annihilate is one of those Pokemon I really wanted to draft, to be perfectly honest. And while it doesn't have anything synergistic wise with Manaphy, like I said, being a spin blocker, defog deterrent, and just an overall great Pokemon in general, between like Ghost plus Fighting, only one Pokemon resists or is immune to both of its dual stats, and that's Hisuian and Zoroark. This thing is still a menace, even though it cannot Terra. Like, between Bulk Up, between Scar, between Ban, between Assault Vest, versatility is great for this Pokemon. It's not limited to just one thing, and that's why I think Annihilate works well with my playstyle, because I'm not really focusing on trying to do one particular thing with a specific Pokemon. I can fluctuate. Then with that, I wanted hazards, and that's where Ting Lu comes in. Ting Lu, a bulky stealth rocker, spiker, and just a overall tank. This thing takes hits for days. It can set up layers of stealth rock, it get up spikes, and it's not that bad from a hitting standpoint. And on top of that, it gives my team not only the dark and ground typing, so I have the psychic immunity, I have the electric immunity for Manaphy, but like I said, I get hazards. That's the main thing I want to incorporate with Manaphy. I have my spin blocker, I have my breaker, now I just need hazards to incorporate to let that breaker do what it does best. Ting Lu felt like the best option in round 3 to facilitate in that breaking role for Manaphy with the hazards, with the phasing with Whirlwind, and so on and so forth. Even weakening stuff with Ruination is also fantastic for Manaphy, so it doesn't have to boost up as much to facilitate in breaking. Then on top of that, I also picked up Ogerpon Teal Mass, which is great because it gives me a grass resist, which is what Manaphy and Ting Lu are both weak to, another electric check, and even more so, another spiker. So I have 2 options for spikes, and even better, I also have another defog deterrent because this Ogerpon is Teal Mass, meaning it has Defiant. So now I have 2 defog deterrents with Annihilate and Ogerpon, and it's just going to be fun. Ogerpon Teal Mass is essentially like Meowscarada 2.0. Let's basically put it that way. Both gets access to a unique grass type, a signature grass type move. Granted, Ivy Cudgel specifies based on the type of Teal of Mass, but then I have the base Ogerpon. Ivy Cudgel will always be a grass move. Both gets knockoff, both gets U-turn, both get spikes. So the only difference is Ogerpon is a little bit slower, but it is stronger. Granted, there's no protein to go along with it. Defiant makes up for it, especially considering if I'm able to get in on any potential defog and go to town, you know what I'm saying. But regardless, having the another option for hazard stacking with spikes helps out Manaphy. It already helps out Manaphy because it deals with bulky waters already, so Manaphy doesn't have to waste a slot having to run like Energy Ball. I can use it for other options as well, for other coverage options aside from Scald and Ice Beam, Dazzling Gleam. Like, it has its moments, and even I can do Acid Armor, Take Heart, and Stored Power, especially considering Take Heart is not banned on Manaphy as opposed to what other leagues might do, because Take Heart's a great move. But regardless, and then the rest of the team that I drafted pretty much focuses on fulfilling out my speed tiers, other typings that I was missing, and just having the best overall way to make sure that Manaphy can do its job from a breaking aspect, and at the same time, other Pokemon benefit from the breaking. So, Kilowatt Trail, round number 5, I needed speed, something faster than base 1, then my Ogerpon, which was my fastest Pokemon, 125 speed, Electric typing, flying typing, so it gives me an electric immunity with Volt Absorb, another grass resist for Manaphy, so that's a great thing right there. A way of dealing with bulky waters for Manaphy that's not like a Gastrodon or a Quagsire, and even then, I have Ogerpon. Manaphy can run Energy Ball in those situations, so it's really, really good. A fast pivot for my team, really nice to have in general. And then, I don't know what it is when it comes to me and drafting Gardevoir. I don't know what it is that Gardevoir always finds its way on my team. It's not the fact that I don't want to, that I keep drafting it. This was actually the one time I did not want to draft a Gardevoir. I was actually looking at getting Hatterene, but Hatterene got taken before, and I was like, okay, I need a fairy. The fairy types are dwindling, and I figured if I didn't get Gardevoir now, I wasn't going to get one later, but as you see, I did end up getting one later because of another typing I was lacking. So yeah, Gardevoir, what else can I say? Gardevoir has never let me down. You know the vibes. Some people might say that it's overrated, it's a fairy type that doesn't that's dark. That's never bothered me in the slightest when it comes to Gardevoir. It's just ridiculously versatile. You just gotta take your mind out of the situation of thinking Gardevoir is not just a Scarfer. It can do Specs. It can do Assault Vest. It can do Trick Room. That's 4 sets right there, or 3 other sets aside from being a Revenge Killer. You can't limit yourself to a specific standard like Smogon has a standard Scarf Gardevoir set. No, this is Draft League. Draft League, you can take your possibilities, flex your brain a bit. Gardevoir does not let me down. Whatever role I put Gardevoir in, she does her job, and it's very straightforward, very simple. And if you haven't used it or you're skeptical about putting Gardevoir down, give me a bit, and I might re-teach you of the beauty that is Gardevoir. Other than that, though, filling out the rest of my team, Dragalge, I've used this Pokemon in the past before. My team needed a ground and poison, since having something that's weak, that soaks up toxic spikes, is so important to have in Draft League format, so you're not just having to deal with that, you're not having to put boots on everything. And Dragalge is pretty good. It gets rid of grass types for Manaphy, which can like faster grass types like Meowscarada, for example, and adaptability Draco Meteors and Sludge Bombs and whatnot. Those are pretty new. Those are pretty deadly, not gonna lie. And then on top of that, it does get access to Flip Turn. So not only do I have my fast momentum with potential Scarf Annihilate, we have Ogerpon, Kilowattrel. Now I have my slow momentum with Dragalge to get in my breaker in Manaphy. So the team is coming together a bit. On top of that, I get a T-Spike setter as well, and Poison Dragon is never a bad typing to have. It's not a, what's it called? It gives me a way of dealing with fairy types as well, since Poison does come up a bunch in those matchups where you're dealing with like either regular fairy types or Terra Fairy Mons that may come up in certain matchups. But yeah, Dragalge is fantastic. Having a slow breaker is never a bad thing to have, especially when that breaker is paired with momentum. And next, we have Tinkaton. Now, to say I was struggling to get a steel type is an understatement at this point, and let's just say Tinkaton wasn't my first option. Ideally, I would have had something like Scizor on this team, but I figured if I didn't get a steel now, I was going to get something really lackluster. Tinkaton, while not the strongest, it still fits my role as a steel type. It gives me another Stealth Rocker to go along with Ting Lu and with Annihilate, but I really want to put Stealth Rock on that. but it's also a very solid utility mon with access to Encore, Thunderwave, can sword stance if it wants to, and then it also gives me another means of knockoff, so I can get rid of heavy duty boots, make sure that my opponent's Pokemon takes that chip damage from the Stealth Rock, the spikes, whatever. And other than that, though, it's just a very solid glue mon for the team. Nothing much to say about that. It's just very bulky, and nothing much else to say other than the fact that I desperately needed a steal, and Take-A-Ton was there and fit the bill. Then we move on to our Terra Captains, so to speak. So the first one I picked up was Pyroar. Pyroar fit the team because having some other speed, or just filling out my speed gaps a little bit, helped out a bit. It fits a nice 106 speed tier between Manaphy and Ogerpon Teal Mask. And on top of that, I needed a normal type. I had no fire type, hence Pyroar. And Pyroar was pretty cheap for only 3 points. And I made it one of my Terra Captains because nothing else on this team really screamed usable Terra, especially considering the lack of, not flexibility, but the lack of options to terrestrialize. So I figured put on Terra Pyroar. Not really much going on in the result of that. I don't know how often Pyroar will come to games, but it's still a very solid hard-hitting special attacker. I can terrestrialize it into either a grass, fire, or fairy type. Fire, like one of the Terra times had to be a stab option, and I figured fire was better than normal, even though normal is a bit more better just to keep the ghost immunity. Terra Grass gets rid of the ground weakness and the water weakness for Pyroar, and on top of that, it gives me a means of hitting bulky water types. And then Terra Fairy it helps me against opposing fighting types, and it gives me a means of retaliating against them with Terra Blast Fairy, excuse me. Then we have our Cleavor. Cleavor, a Pokemon I was definitely looking at to get in the later rounds, just because Cleavor gave me a means of getting up Stealth Rock for my team without having to waste a turn clicking Stealth Rock, thanks to its signature move in Stone Axe, letting me set up Stealth Rock, do a bit of damage with its ability Sharpness, stuff like X-Scissor, Night Slash, U-Turn for momentum. So yeah, I have momentum for days on this build, on this team, and yeah, having the means of setting up Stealth Rock on my opponent's side of the field while having to waste a turn clicking Stealth Rock. So I get my Stealth Rock up, I get my damage, and yeah, it's a good time. Other than that, though, Cleavor is a very solid Pokemon overall. Very hard hitting, even if I'm not running like an SD or Banded set. I'm probably going to be making this like a Scarfer pretty much most of the time. But other than that, though, Cleavor does its job really, really well in terms of getting up rocks for the team and just getting damage off of my opponent's team overall. So can't complain about that. And now we have the last two mons in the team. So we have Luxray, and I don't really know what to make of Luxray, to be perfectly honest here. It just felt like the odd on out on this build, just because like I already have an electric type and a kilowatt trail. It doesn't really do anything, but I will try. I don't really want to say that Luxray is on a team for the sake of me having it. It's also the fact that nothing really appealed to me in the later rounds, so I figured, hey, get a different Pokemon, try something new. So Terra Luxray was the option here. I think the only misplay I did with making Luxray my Terra Captain was not making it Terra Normal. Like, I have Electric Grass and Fairy. I don't need Terra Fairy, just because I technically already have 3 Fairies on the team. I don't need a 4th one. Like, the only thing about being Terra Fairy Luxray is it will give me a fighting resist that actually is a fighting resist, in a sense. Like, it could be like a physically defensive fighting resist that's not like Terra Fairy Pyroar or physically defensive Gardevoir, even though she can do that. But regardless, I might change that in the upcoming weeks to Terra Normal. I'll see what happens in the matchup. And then we have the last mon, Swanna. Now, honestly, Swanna is kind of a enigma, so to speak, but I don't necessarily see myself bringing it that much. But I did like the appeal of Swanna, if only due to the fact that, for one, it was 2 points. Two, I really wanted to make this a Terra captain, but there was not enough points to do so, because the Terra point values are different from the actual point values of the Pokemon. So if I could have did Pyro, Luxray, and Swanna, I would. Alas, I can't. But regardless, Water Flying is fantastic offensively, and the one thing my team lacked that Swanna does give my team is removal. Granted, it's a bit counterintuitive when you think about it, since I am trying to hazard stack, and defogging away my own hazards seems like a lost cause. But regardless, if a situation does come up where Swanna is needed to get rid of hazards and just be an offensive threat with stab, water, and flying moves, then yeah, that is what I will bring it as. And it can also be defensive if you really, really want to, but just the matchups are going to have to be perfect. The stars are going to have to align for that thing to actually be defensive. But with that out of the way, this has been going on for a little bit longer than intended, but that is the team I am drafted for PPL Flare Division. I'm really happy with the team overall. It may look like a little bit of a mishmash of Mons, but I am excited to try out all these Pokemon. Really looking forward to my first Draft League game, which will be going up Monday. And I don't mean next Monday after the draft analysis go up. I mean tomorrow. This is going to be going up on Sunday, and week 1 will be the day after. So you guys have a lot to look forward to for week number 1. Hope you guys are excited as much as I am. If you did enjoy the video, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed the face cam reveal. It definitely wasn't something I was expecting to do, but I figured why not try it out, because first time for everything, right? But I'll leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until the next time, this is Tone, signing out for now. Peace out.